Maya Williams had always been a woman who commanded attention. As the CEO of a major corporation, she was no stranger to power. Her journey to the top hadn't been easy. As one of the few black women in a leadership role in the corporate world, Maya had faced obstacles that many couldn't even imagine. But over the years, she had proven herself, earning respect from colleagues, clients, and competitors alike. She worked hard, always staying focused on the bigger picture. On that particular day, Maya was feeling a mix of excitement and anticipation. It was a busy morning, and she had just arrived at the company's headquarters for an important meeting with the management team. The conference room was prepared for her, and she was ready to discuss the future of the company, new projects, and how to take the business to the next level. It was supposed to be a day of moving forward. As she stepped into the lobby of the building, the first thing she noticed was the silence in the air. Usually, the space was buzzing with energy, people rushing to and from meetings. But today, there was an odd stillness. Maya shrugged it off, figuring it was just a quiet morning. She walked up to the receptionist's desk, smiling as she always did. "Good morning, Alice," she greeted the receptionist warmly, used to the friendly exchanges she had with the staff. Alice, however, looked a little more distant than usual. "Good morning, Miss Williams," Alice said in a low voice, avoiding eye contact. Maya raised an eyebrow. Something didn't feel right, but she dismissed the thought. "I'm here for the meeting with the management team," Maya said, expecting the usual response, "Right this way, Miss Williams." Instead, Alice hesitated. Miss Williams, the management team is in a meeting right now. They've asked you to wait outside for a moment." Maya was taken aback. Wait outside? It wasn't the first time she had arrived before a meeting started, and it certainly wasn't uncommon for meetings to run late. But this felt different. Alice's tone wasn't the usual cheerful one, there was something almost guarded about her. "Is there a problem?" Maya asked, her voice calm but firm. She was the CEO after all, and she had earned her place at that table. Alice quickly shook her head. "No, no problem. Just wait outside for a little while," she said, gesturing toward the waiting area. Maya didn't want to make a scene, but a knot started to form in her stomach. She nodded politely, not wanting to cause trouble. But as she moved toward the waiting area, her mind began to race. Why was she being told to wait? Was there a problem with the meeting? Or had something happened that she wasn't aware of? As she sat down, Maya glanced around the quiet lobby. The usual hum of phones ringing and people rushing to meetings was absent. It felt like time had slowed down, and the weight of the silence pressed against her. For the first time in a long while, she felt like an outsider in her own company. Minutes ticked by slowly. She checked her phone, but there were no new messages. She could hear the distant murmur of voices from the conference room down the hallway, but nothing that made sense. Why hadn't they let her in yet? She was the CEO, after all. She didn't wait. But here she was, waiting alone. Finally, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her assistant, Lena. Maya's heart skipped a beat as she read the words on the screen. "Management is planning a major restructure. Your position may be at risk." Maya felt a cold rush of disbelief. The words seemed to echo in her mind. A restructure? Her position at risk? This was the first time she had heard anything like this. She had always been in control, always one step ahead. She had worked hard to get to where she was, and her leadership had been key to the company's success. So why now? Why had no one mentioned anything about this? Her mind was a blur of questions, and for the first time in a long while, doubt crept in. Maya had worked closely with the management team for years. They had built the company together. Or so she thought. Had they been planning behind her back? Had they already decided her fate? She couldn't sit still anymore. The anxiety she had been trying to push aside bubbled up, and she stood up abruptly. The receptionist looked up at her in surprise. "Miss Williams, are you?" "I'm going to find out what's going on," Maya said, her voice determined. She didn't wait for a response but walked quickly toward the conference room. As she approached, she heard raised voices from inside. She paused for a moment, standing in front of the door. Her heart raced. What was going on? Were they really discussing a restructure behind her back? The door was slightly ajar, and through the crack, Maya could see the management team gathered around a large conference table, deep in conversation. Her instincts told her to step back. But then, she heard Jonathan, the company's coup, his voice rising above the others. "We need to act fast. There's a risk if we don't make these changes. We need to make sure that Maya is kept in the loop, but we can't let her control the direction anymore. It's time for a shift. The company needs a new vision." Maya's heart sank. There it was, plain and clear. They were talking about her, about replacing her. The team she trusted, the people she had built her company with, were discussing how to push her out. Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had worked tirelessly for this company, and now, they were planning to take it all away. She stepped back from the door, her mind racing. She had been told to wait outside. But it wasn't just the receptionist who had made that decision, it was the management team. They had known she would arrive, and they had planned this moment. But why hadn't they had the courage to face her directly? Why had they let this go so far? Maya clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. They thought they could push her aside, but they underestimated her. She had built this company from the ground up, and no one, not even the people she had trusted the most, was going to take that from her. She straightened her back, ready to confront the situation head-on. It was time to take control, to show them what true leadership looked like. She wasn't just the CEO, she was Maya Williams, and she wasn't about to let anyone forget that. Maya stood outside the conference room, her mind racing with a mix of disbelief and anger. Her thoughts were spinning in every direction as she tried to process what she had just overheard. She had worked tirelessly for years to build this company from the ground up, to lead with integrity and vision. But now, it felt like everything she had built was crumbling around her. Her hand gripped her phone tightly as she stared at the message from her assistant, Lena. The words still echoed in her mind: "Management is planning a major restructure. Your position may be at risk." The message seemed too serious to ignore. Could they really be planning to remove her from the very company she had nurtured, the company that bore her name and reputation? Maya's mind snapped back to the present. She had to act. She couldn't just sit around and wait for someone to make decisions for her. As the CEO, she was supposed to be the one leading, not being pushed out by her own team. A feeling of betrayal washed over her as she thought of the years she had spent mentoring the very people who now seemed to be plotting her downfall. She knew the next step was crucial. Maya had always prided herself on her calm demeanor in the face of adversity, but the situation she was in was different. This wasn't just about business, this was about respect. Her dignity, her place in the company, and her future all hung in the balance. Maya looked around the quiet lobby again, almost as though she was searching for answers in the empty space. She was no longer the confident leader who walked in with a clear vision. Now, she was uncertain and vulnerable, feeling exposed in a way she had never imagined. The worst part was that she had no idea how deep this betrayal went. Had the management team been planning this for weeks? Or was this some sudden decision made in a moment of weakness? Suddenly, the doors to the conference room opened. Jonathan, the coup, stepped out, looking flustered and uncomfortable as he quickly glanced over at Maya. She could see the guilt in his eyes, but it wasn't enough to ease the storm brewing inside her. "Miss Williams," Jonathan began, but his voice faltered. "We need to talk." Maya didn't waste any time. She wasn't going to sit back and wait for more cryptic conversations. She had waited long enough. Without hesitation, she marched forward, walking past Jonathan and into the conference room where her team was gathered. The moment she entered the room, the conversation stopped. Her team froze, their eyes widening in shock. Maya could feel their gazes on her, some full of fear, others laced with guilt. But she wasn't interested in their reactions. She had something more important to say. "How long were you planning this?" Maya's voice cut through the tension in the room, steady and calm, though her heart was pounding in her chest. Jonathan quickly closed the door behind her, but he didn't speak. Maya glanced around at the rest of the team: Sarah, the CFO, who had always been her trusted advisor, Mark, the head of operations, who was known for his sharp mind, and Lisa, the marketing director, who had been one of Maya's closest confidants. Each of them sat there, uncomfortable and guilty, knowing they had been caught in their own lie. "I heard everything," Maya continued. "I know what you've been saying behind my back. This so-called restructure isn't about improving the company. It's about pushing me out." Her words hung heavily in the air. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Maya, it's not what you think," she said, her voice shaking. "We didn't mean to, we were just trying to come up with some new ideas. The company's been struggling lately," and Maya held up her hand to silence Sarah. "Stop. This isn't about struggling, and this certainly isn't about new ideas. You've been planning this for months, haven't you?" Maya's voice was firm, with a sharp edge to it. "Behind closed doors, you've decided that I am the problem? That I'm no longer capable of leading this company?" The room was silent. None of them could deny it. They had been caught. Maya's eyes moved from one person to the next, each of them avoiding her gaze. Her mind raced with thoughts of betrayal. She had trusted these people. They had been by her side for years. But now, they were all part of a conspiracy to take her down. "What's worse," Maya said, her voice growing colder, "is that you never had the decency to face me. To tell me to my face that you were planning to remove me. Instead, you left me sitting out there, like I was the outsider. Well, I'm not the outsider here. You are. You've been plotting behind my back, and I'm done with it." Jonathan finally spoke, his voice low and hesitant. "Maya, this isn't personal. It's just business. The company needs a new direction. A fresh perspective." And Maya cut him off. "No. This is personal. It's about power. It's about control. You didn't want a new direction. You just wanted to take over." She stepped closer to the table, her eyes locking onto each of them. "Well, let me make one thing clear. This company isn't yours. It's mine. And I'm not going anywhere." The room remained still, no one daring to speak. Maya could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She had come to this point because of the trust and loyalty she had given to her team. But now, that trust had been shattered, and the only thing left to do was take control back. Maya turned toward Jonathan, her eyes narrowing. "Jonathan, you've been planning to take over. You're the one who's been trying to get rid of me all along. You didn't think I would find out, did you? Well, now that I know, you and everyone else here need to understand one thing: I'm in charge, and I'll always be in charge." Jonathan looked as though he was about to say something, but Maya wasn't interested in hearing his excuses. She had heard enough. Effective immediately, Maya said, her voice unwavering, "I'm dismissing the entire management team. All of you. Your positions are terminated. I don't care what plans you had. I will personally oversee the restructuring of this company." The shock on their faces was almost surreal. It was like the wind had been knocked out of them. They had expected her to falter, to beg for her position, But Maya wasn't about to do that. She had built this company, and she wasn't going to let anyone tear it down. Not today, not ever. As she walked out of the room, leaving the stunned management team behind, Maya felt a sense of relief wash over her. It wasn't just about firing them. It was about reclaiming her power, her dignity, and her place in the company she had worked so hard to build. Maya walked out of the conference room, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. The suddenness of her decision to fire the entire management team still rang in her ears. As much as it had been necessary, it felt surreal. She had been through so much to get to this point, and now everything had changed in an instant. Her heart was still racing, but it wasn't from fear. It was from a deep, growing sense of empowerment. Maya had stood up for herself in a way she never had before. For the first time in years, she had been forced to face the reality that not everyone around her had her best interests at heart. The people she had trusted, the ones she had mentored, had been plotting behind her back. But now they were gone, and she was free. She made her way to her office, her mind racing with plans and ideas. She couldn't sit around and wallow in the shock of what had just happened. She needed to move quickly. The company depended on her, and more than that, her legacy depended on what she did next. As she entered her office, Maya closed the door behind her and collapsed into the chair behind her desk. She took a few deep breaths, trying to calm her racing thoughts. It felt like the weight of the world was on her shoulders, but for the first time in years, she was alone in her decision-making. No one was second-guessing her, no one was trying to control her, and no one was undermining her authority. She was finally in full control. Maya reached for her phone, dialing Lena's number. It rang a few times before Lena picked up. "Miss Williams, are you okay?" Lena asked, her voice full of concern. "I'm fine," Maya replied. "Better than fine, actually. I just did something that needed to be done." Lena was silent for a moment. You fired them, didn't you?" Maya chuckled, though it was a dry laugh. "Yes, I did. I had no choice. They had been planning behind my back, and I wasn't going to let them take me down. The company is mine, Lena. And I'm going to take it back." "I knew you had it in you," Lena said, her tone filled with admiration. "What's next? What do you need me to do?" Maya leaned back in her chair, looking out the window of her office at the city below. The world seemed so small from up here, and yet, at that moment, it felt like everything was within her reach. "I need to start rebuilding. I need to find the right people to fill those positions. People who understand the vision, who believe in this company, and who will work with me, not against me." Lena was quiet for a moment. "I'll start looking for candidates right away. We'll make sure we find the right fit." "Good," Maya said. "But I need more than just a new team. I need to make a statement. I need to show everyone inside the company and out that I'm not going to let anyone walk all over me again. I've worked too hard for this." Lena's voice softened. "You've earned your place, Maya. No one can take that from you." Maya smiled at the support, but she knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. She had just made one of the hardest decisions of her life, and the consequences were still unclear. Her reputation had been on the line, but more than that, her future as a leader was now under scrutiny. Everyone would be watching her closely to see if she could bounce back from this, if she could truly lead the company to greater heights despite the scandal. As Maya hung up the phone, she stood up from her desk and walked over to the window. The view was stunning, as it always was. She had spent countless hours gazing out over the city, thinking about what her future would look like. But today, things felt different. She wasn't just thinking about the future. She was planning for it, shaping it with every decision she made. Her phone buzzed again. It was a message from Sarah, the former CFO, sent just after the meeting. "Maya, I know this is hard, but you've made a mistake. We were trying to help the company. I was only looking out for what's best for everyone. You should reconsider. It doesn't have to be like this." Maya stared at the message, her emotions a whirlwind of anger and frustration. Sarah had always been the one to tell her what she wanted to hear, the one who smiled and nodded through every meeting, while quietly working against her. She had been an ally, a friend, but now Maya knew the truth. There was no going back. She deleted the message without replying. There was no time for second guessing, no room for doubt. She had made her decision, and she was going to stick with it. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the next steps pressing down on her. There was no time to waste. She needed to move quickly. She had to start assembling a new team, one that would align with her vision and help drive the company forward. She couldn't afford to let any more time slip away. She called Lena again, her voice calm and decisive. "I need you to schedule a meeting with the board. We need to let them know what happened, and we need to assure them that the company will continue moving forward. We're not backing down. I want the board to see that I'm in control." Lena quickly agreed. "I'll get on it right away, Miss Williams." Maya sat back down at her desk, her mind already running through the details of the meeting. She would need to address the board, explain her actions, and calm any fears they might have about the company's future. It wasn't going to be easy, but she was prepared. She had to be. As the hours passed, Maya found herself reviewing her plans for the company in more detail. She was determined to make the company stronger than ever. She would use this moment of crisis to prove her worth, to show everyone that she was the leader they needed. But she also knew that the true test was still ahead. The real work would begin once she had the right people in place, once she had a team that could stand by her and help her push the company to new heights. Only then would she be able to truly move forward and leave the past behind. Maya had always been someone who could handle pressure. But this was different. The stakes were higher, and the challenges were greater. But one thing was certain: she would not back down. She would fight for her company, for her vision, and for the future she had always dreamed of. She was ready. Maya sat in her office, the weight of her decisions heavy on her shoulders. It had only been a few hours since she had fired the entire management team, and yet the impact of her actions was already beginning to sink in. The silence in her office felt thick and oppressive, a sharp contrast to the usual hustle and bustle of the workday. She had been through many difficult moments in her career, but nothing quite like this. She thought back to the moment when she had stood in the conference room, looking at the faces of people she had trusted for years. Their shock, their confusion, it had been almost too much to bear. But she knew deep down that what she had done was the only way forward. They had crossed a line, and there was no coming back from it. They had shown her exactly who they were, and she had made her decision. Maya leaned back in her chair, letting the thoughts swirl in her mind. She had spent years building this company, and now it felt like everything was on the line. She had no choice but to move forward, but the path ahead was uncertain. She could feel the eyes of the entire company on her. Everyone would be watching to see how she handled this crisis. They would be waiting to see if she could lead them out of the storm she had just created. Her phone buzzed on the desk, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Lena, her assistant. Maya picked it up and read the message, her eyes narrowing slightly as she read the words. "The board has requested an urgent meeting. They want to know what's going on and how you plan to move forward." Maya sighed, setting the phone back down on the desk. The board was her next hurdle. She had no doubt that they were all talking about her actions, questioning whether she was fit to lead the company. But Maya wasn't about to back down. She had made her choice, and now she would have to stand by it. There was no turning back. She stood up from her desk and walked over to the large window of her office. The view was breathtaking, but it did little to calm the storm brewing inside her. She had always believed in the company's mission, in the work they did, and in the people who had built it with her. But now, everything was uncertain. Her team was gone, and she was left to pick up the pieces. Maya had been in situations like this before, but this time felt different. The stakes were higher. There was no room for failure. The company's future depended on the decisions she made now. She needed to act quickly, but she couldn't afford to make any rash moves. The board would want answers, and she had to be prepared to give them clear, decisive plans for the way forward. She paced back and forth, her mind running through the possibilities. She knew she needed to make a statement, something that would reassure the board and the rest of the company that she was still in control. But at the same time, she couldn't afford to be seen as a leader who was making decisions on impulse. This was her moment to show that she could handle the pressure, that she could lead through the storm. Maya grabbed a notebook from her desk and began writing down her thoughts. She made a list of the key points she wanted to address in the meeting with the board. She needed to explain why she had fired the management team, why it had been necessary for the future of the company. She needed to reassure them that she had a vision for the company's growth, that she had a plan in place to rebuild the team and strengthen the company's position in the market. As she wrote, Maya realized that she wasn't just preparing for a meeting with the board. She was preparing for a battle. She was about to fight for her place as the leader of this company, and she knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be people who doubted her, people who questioned her every move. But she wasn't going to let that stop her. She had earned her position, and she wasn't about to let anyone take it from her. Her phone buzzed again, and this time it was a call from the board chairman, Richard. She took a deep breath before answering. Maya, Richard's voice came through the phone, calm but firm. We need to talk. The board is concerned about the recent developments. They want to know how you plan to move forward after today's decisions. Maya straightened up, her voice steady and confident. I understand, Richard. And I'll be happy to explain my reasoning to the board. But I want to be clear about one thing, this company belongs to me. I built it, and I'm going to ensure it thrives, no matter what it takes. Richard was silent for a moment before responding. I appreciate your determination, Maya. But you must understand that the board is looking for answers. We need to be sure that the company's future is secure, that the changes you've made won't lead to more instability. I understand, Maya replied. And I will give you those answers. I'm putting together a plan for how we will rebuild, how we will move forward stronger than ever. But I need the board's support. I can't do this alone. We'll meet tomorrow at 10 a.m., Richard said. Be prepared to present your plan to the board. I trust you, Maya, but we need to see that you have a clear vision for the future. The call ended, and Maya set the phone down, her mind already racing with plans for the meeting. She had a lot of work to do before tomorrow. But she wasn't worried. She had faced tougher challenges in the past, and she had always come out on top. This would be no different. She called Lena again, this time with a sense of urgency in her voice. Lena, I need you to gather the team. I need to start rebuilding, and I need the right people in place. We can't afford to waste any more time. I'm on it, Miss Williams, Lena replied. Maya hung up the phone and looked out the window again. She had just made one of the toughest decisions of her life, but it was only the beginning. The real work was about to start. Tomorrow, she would face the board, and she would show them that she was more than capable of leading this company. She had built it from the ground up, and she wasn't about to let anyone take it from her now. This was her company, her vision, and she was going to make sure everyone knew it. The day of the board meeting arrived, and Maya felt the weight of the moment in every step she took as she made her way into the conference room. The room was stark, the long table polished to perfection, but it felt different today, more intimidating. She had been in this room countless times before, but today was different. Today, she wasn't just walking in as the CEO. Today, She was walking in as someone who had made one of the boldest decisions of her career, a decision that would change everything. The board members were already seated when Maya entered, their faces a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and, in some cases, concern. Richard, the board chairman, gave her a polite nod, but even he couldn't hide the unease in his eyes. Maya had been with the company long enough to read the room. They were all wondering the same thing: was she truly the right person to lead them forward, or had she made a terrible mistake? She took a deep breath, feeling her nerves steady. There was no turning back now. She had to prove herself to these people, to show them that her decision to fire the management team wasn't impulsive, but rather the necessary action for the survival and growth of the company. Maya, Richard began, his voice calm but with an underlying sense of expectation, the board has been informed of the events that took place yesterday. We understand you've made some significant decisions regarding the management team. The question now is what comes next. Maya smiled. It wasn't a fake smile, but a confident one. What comes next, she said, her voice clear and unwavering, is the future of this company. A future I will shape. Yesterday was necessary to remove the roadblocks standing in our way. I'm here to tell you that I have a plan to take us to the next level, to make us stronger, more innovative, and more united than ever before. She paused, letting her words sink in. The room was silent, the board members all leaning in slightly, waiting for her to continue. I understand that my actions may have been unexpected, she said, her gaze moving around the room. But as a leader, it's my responsibility to make tough decisions, even when they're unpopular. When I saw the discontent and division within my team, I knew I had to act. I had to protect the integrity of this company and its future. Maya's words weren't just explanations, they were a declaration. She had made her decision, and she wasn't backing down. I've spent years building this company, and I won't let it be torn apart by hidden agendas or self-serving interests. We're stronger than that. And we will rise above this, together. There was a long pause before Sarah, the former CFO, spoke up. But Maya, she said, her voice tinged with doubt, how can we move forward when we've lost so many key people? Don't you think this will leave a huge gap in leadership? Maya turned to Sarah, meeting her eyes with calm assurance. There is no doubt that the management team was integral to our company's operations, but we've reached a point where their leadership was no longer aligned with the company's best interests. Yes, there will be a gap, but I see it as an opportunity. An opportunity to bring in new talent, people who share my vision and are committed to making this company the best it can be. Maya paused and let the silence linger for a moment, her gaze sweeping across the room. She knew Sarah's concerns were valid, but she also knew that the company couldn't keep moving forward with people who didn't have the same passion, the same drive. She needed fresh blood, new perspectives. I've already started looking at potential candidates to fill these roles, Maya continued. But I won't just hire anyone. I need people who have proven track records, people who aren't afraid to challenge the status quo and push us beyond our limits. I want to surround myself with leaders who are just as committed to this company as I am. Leaders who will help us innovate and grow. She could see the board members starting to relax, their body language shifting as they listened to her words. It was clear that Maya had a plan, and it was a plan they could get behind. Moreover, Maya said, her voice steady, we're not just talking about filling leadership positions. We're talking about a complete shift in how we operate. We'll focus more on collaboration, transparency, and accountability. These values are at the heart of everything we do, and they'll be the driving force behind our growth moving forward. The board members exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement. They were beginning to understand what Maya was saying. She wasn't just defending her actions, she was showing them a clear path forward, a way to rebuild the company stronger and more united than ever. Richard, the chairman, finally spoke again. Maya, we understand the rationale behind your decision. But we need to know that this new direction will lead to tangible results. Can you guarantee that these changes will bring the company the success we need? Maya's answer was simple, but it carried weight. I can't guarantee success. No one can. But I can guarantee that I will do everything in my power to lead this company to success. I have a vision, and I'm willing to fight for it. I've always believed in this company, and I believe in its people. We can do this together. She could see the skepticism in some of the board members' eyes, but she knew she had done everything she could to make her case. Now, it was up to them. She had presented her vision, her plan, and her commitment to the company. It was clear that she wasn't just the CEO by title, she was the leader who was ready to take charge, no matter the obstacles. There was another long silence as the board members conferred among themselves. Maya sat back, watching them carefully, waiting for their verdict. She had faced the storm and was still standing. She was ready to face whatever came next. Finally, Richard spoke again, his voice a little softer now. Maya, we believe in your vision. We believe in your leadership. We're willing to support you in this. We trust that you can lead us through this challenging time and into a brighter future. A wave of relief washed over Maya, but she didn't let herself relax too much. There was still so much work to be done. The real challenge was just beginning. But now, for the first time in days, she felt a sense of optimism. She had the support of the board, and she knew she had the strength to lead her company to greatness. The rest of the meeting went smoothly as they discussed the next steps, focusing on how to implement the changes Maya had outlined. She was energized by the conversation, ready to take on whatever came next. As the meeting concluded, Maya stood up, her heart swelling with pride. She had fought for her position, for her company, and for her vision, and she had won. Walking out of the room, she knew there was still much to do. The road ahead would be difficult, but Maya was ready. This was just the beginning. She would rebuild, strengthen, and transform her company, one step at a time. And this time, nothing and no one would stand in her way.